Could the Arctic become the next global flashpoint, igniting a fierce contest for dominance over the world's newest and most lucrative frontier? As unprecedented ice melt carves open new seaways, a high-stakes chess game is unfolding between global powers, each vying for control. This monumental shift in global shipping, driven by the allure of dramatically shorter trade routes, carries profound implications for international commerce, resource allocation, and military strategy. How might this race for the top of the world redefine global power dynamics? And what does this escalating competition mean for your future? Which nations are already maneuvering for position, and what are the unseen costs of this northern gold rush? The Great Melt has triggered a new maritime gold rush, a dramatic transformation of the planet's northernmost region from a frozen wasteland into a strategic artery for global trade. As the ice recedes at an alarming rate, what were once impassable frozen barriers are becoming viable shipping channels. The allure is undeniable. The northern sea route, hugging Russia's Siberian coastline, can slash the transit time for a vessel traveling from Europe to Asia by up to 40% compared to the traditional journey through the Suez Canal. This translates into staggering savings on fuel, labor, and insurance costs, offering a competitive edge that is too significant for shipping magnates and national planners to ignore. Similarly, the fabled Northwest Passage through the Canadian Arctic archipelago presents another potential pathway, promising to reshape the logistics of trans-Pacific trade. This isn't a distant future scenario. It's a present-day reality, with commercial voyages and exploratory transits growing in frequency each year, charting the course for a new era of global commerce. These emerging seaways are not merely alternatives. They represent a fundamental disruption to the established order, a redrawing of the global map that challenges centuries of maritime convention and economic geography. The economic incentives are so potent that they are accelerating a geopolitical scramble, forcing nations to stake their claims and invest heavily in the infrastructure required to master this harsh, yet increasingly accessible, new frontier. This race for Arctic dominance has seen nations move their pieces across the board with calculated precision. Russia, viewing the northern sea route as its historical backyard and a cornerstone of its future economic strategy, has asserted de facto control with formidable resolve. Moscow has poured billions into a sprawling network of military bases, deep-water ports, and search-and-rescue stations along its vast Arctic coastline. Its fleet of nuclear-powered icebreakers, the largest and most powerful in the world, acts as both a facilitator of commerce and a potent symbol of sovereign power, allowing Russia to dictate the terms of passage and project influence across the region. Not to be outmaneuvered, China has declared itself a near-Arctic state and unveiled its ambitious Polar Silk Road initiative, framing its involvement as a matter of scientific research and economic partnership. Yet, beneath this veneer of cooperation lies a clear strategic intent. Beijing has been aggressively investing in Arctic resource projects, funding infrastructure in nations like Iceland and Greenland, and expanding its icebreaker fleet, signaling a long-term commitment to securing a foothold in this vital new corridor and challenging Russia's regional hegemony. In response, the traditional Arctic powers are scrambling to fortify their positions. United States, Canada, Denmark, and Norway are conducting increasingly frequent and complex naval exercises, testing their capabilities in the unforgiving polar environment. They are upgrading their own modest icebreaker fleets and reevaluating their defense postures, wary of the strategic ambitions of both Moscow and Beijing. This buildup is creating a complex web of alliances and rivalries, turning the once quiet Arctic into a theater of strategic competition where every move is scrutinized and every claim is contested. Beyond the allure of faster shipping, the thawing Arctic is exposing a treasure trove of untapped resources, adding a volatile new dimension to the geopolitical contest. Beneath the melting ice and permafrost lie some of the world's largest remaining reserves of oil, natural gas, and critical rare earth minerals essential for modern technology. As these resources become more accessible, the potential for a resource war grows exponentially. Nations are already jockeying for exploration rights and control over these vast deposits, creating new fault lines for international disputes. This economic competition is mirrored by a chilling military escalation. The region is witnessing a significant buildup of military hardware, from advanced radar installations and air bases to the deployment of submarines capable of operating under the ice. The strategic value of the Arctic is not just economic. It provides the shortest flight path for ballistic missiles between Eurasia and North America, making it a critical arena for missile defense systems and early warning networks. This militarization heightens the risk of miscalculation and naval confrontations in waters where sovereignty is often contested and international law is difficult to enforce. The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea (UNCLOS) provides a framework for maritime claims. But its application in the rapidly changing Arctic is fraught with ambiguity, particularly concerning the legal status of newly opened passages. Managing these overlapping claims and preventing disputes from escalating into open conflict presents one of the most significant security challenges of the 21st century. This geopolitical and economic race carries profound and potentially irreversible costs for the environment and the people who call the Arctic home. The very climate change that is opening these new sea routes is simultaneously unleashing a cascade of environmental devastation. The fragile Arctic ecosystem, finely tuned to its frozen state, is uniquely vulnerable to the impacts of industrialization. Increased shipping traffic brings with it the constant threat of oil spills, which would be catastrophic and nearly impossible to clean up in icy waters. The noise pollution from vessel engines disrupts the migration and communication patterns of marine mammals like whales and seals, while the discharge of ballast water introduces invasive species that can collapse entire food webs. Furthermore, the extraction of oil, gas, and minerals threatens to scar the landscape, pollute waterways, and release vast quantities of carbon stored in the permafrost, creating a dangerous feedback loop that accelerates global warming. For the indigenous communities of the Arctic, this onslaught of industrial activity represents an existential threat. Their traditional ways of life, which have been sustained for millennia through hunting, fishing, and herding, are directly jeopardized by the changing environment and the encroachment of outside interests. These communities, whose voices are often marginalized in the high-level calculus of geopolitics and global trade, face the erosion of their cultural identity and the loss of their ancestral lands. This creates a stark paradox. The pursuit of economic opportunity enabled by a warming planet is actively contributing to the destruction of that same planet and undermining the resilience of its most vulnerable inhabitants. The rise of Arctic shipping routes is poised to fundamentally reconfigure the arteries of global trade, creating a new hierarchy of winners and losers. Established maritime choke points like the Suez and Panama canals, which have long been the linchpins of international commerce, face the prospect of diminished relevance and significant economic disruption. Nations like Egypt and Panama, whose economies are heavily reliant on canal transit fees, could see their geopolitical leverage and national revenues decline as a significant portion of global cargo is rerouted through the north. Conversely, nations and industries positioned to capitalize on this shift stand to gain immensely. Countries with advanced shipbuilding capabilities, particularly those specializing in ice-class vessels, will find a booming market. Ports in Northern Europe, East Asia, and along the Arctic coastlines themselves could transform into bustling new hubs of global logistics. Industries ranging from manufacturing to retail could benefit from shorter supply chains, reduced transportation costs, and faster delivery times, potentially lowering consumer prices and boosting corporate profits. Moreover, the companies and countries that secure access to the Arctic's newly accessible mineral and energy reserves will gain a powerful strategic advantage in the global economy. As we look toward the year 2035, the trajectory of the Arctic remains profoundly uncertain. Will this new frontier become a model of international cooperation, managed sustainably for the collective good? Or will it descend into a zone of unchecked competition, defined by geopolitical instability, environmental degradation, and conflict? How will the world balance the immense economic promise of an open Arctic with the existential risks it poses to the global climate and regional stability?